What's up, guys? You already know what's going on. This is Andrew, and you're listening to Genuine Radio. I'm here with Colin White, and today we're going to be talking about the role of police in our society. So thank you very much, Colin, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. So just give the listeners a brief background about you and your history with the police.
So my name is Colin White. I live here in North Brunswick with Andrew, and I've been here my whole life. My family has, we've been in law enforcement and policing for about 100 years. It goes back to my great-great-grandfather. He was a police officer in the city of New Brunswick, when the city of New Brunswick was one of the biggest cities in the state. So from there, his son, my great-great-grandfather, so his son was worked for General Motors before, so he was not a police officer. And then my grandfather was also a captain for the city of New Brunswick, along with his brother. Their nephew was also a patrolman for New Brunswick. He was medically discharged after a crash. My father is the superintendent of a jail. I have a great uncle also who is a police officer in Conway, South Carolina. He's also a police officer in South Brunswick, New Jersey, but we don't really talk to him anymore. So I have a lot of people that have shown me the good paved road of policing, how to do things the right way. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of good, I've seen a lot of bad, but it's almost my turn to step up to the plate, and we're in a pretty different time than it was years ago when my family was starting out.
Yeah, for sure. So what makes you want to join the force?
I always was around good people, and we observed the bad people, and my grandfather and my great uncle, they took care of the bad people inside of law enforcement, but I was always surrounded by the good people that would come home after I remember one of my friends came home, this was a couple months ago, came home with a black eye. And they sent me a picture, and I was like, what happened? He said, well, I got into a fight, domestic violence. This guy was beating up on his wife, and he went into the house, heard screams, so it's implied you go in, and he had to get into a fight, and ended up being a fight for his life. He's a city cop. He works in New York City, and I just always been surrounded by that goodness, of someone willing to go into a house, mm-hmm. unknown structure, they don't know anything about it. Yeah. All they hear is a scream, that's all they're following. They don't know if the individual is armed, they want to hurt other people. I've been surrounded by that kindness, but mm-hmm. also the kindness of people going out when they're not on duty and stopping behind a police officer that's alone and the car is occupied 2 times. Stuff like that to just make this job so much better and so much better for the community. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why I want to do it, is to help the community, because maybe 20% of the time it's crime fighting, but the other 80% time it's the calls for service, the mental health cases, the traffic collisions, the mm-hmm. Distressed individuals, all this stuff. That's what I want to really get into this mm-hmm. for.
That's very respectable. I can really see that your heart's really in this career. So next we're gonna be talking about the history behind policing. The history's been debated, back and forth. Some people say that police started to control immigrants, to control slaves. What's your knowledge on the history of policing in the United States?
So around the 1800s, 1860s, the London Metropolitan Police was derived. So our modern police system is developed here in the United States and in Canada. For most of the developed world, their police systems are derived from the London Metropolitan Police, which was the first unified police department in the world. Mm-hmm. That was around in the 1800s. When it came over, the policies and the values, the morals, the disciplines, all that came over to the United States. At the time, you had individuals that were stopping people from, just like today, coming from Mexico illegally into the United States. Mm-hmm. At that time, I'm not certain on laws and stuff like that, but you had more of a loosely organized law enforcement system. There was that typical sheriff in town type law that was either, it was enforced or it wasn't. But really, the London Metropolitan Police kind of set everything off.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the Civil War. So we had the Civil War, everyone was at war, and the Union won. And what the Union did was, with their uniforms, they used them to create the first unified police departments all over the country. So New York, Philadelphia, some of the biggest and oldest departments we have,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just spread out from there. They used the uniforms and the ammunition and the training that they had from the Civil War to kind of unify themselves. Since then, we've become more unified. Now we have a full system from federal, state, regional to local, and even campus police.
Yeah. And the history of police and policing in the United States in general has been, like, their presence in our country has been debated. The relationship with the public and the police has been debated a lot, especially going back, in recent years. So let's start to talk about how the police have positively and negatively influenced our society. So what are the things you've seen that the police have been doing, either now or in the past, that have both, not both, but have either positively or negatively influenced our society?
We'll start with the negatives, because the negatives is the biggest thing that people look on. Especially in a profession like this where you're everywhere. If there's a fire, if there's a medical call, if there's an event, a parade, the police is always there.
Mm-hmm.
You're always encountering police officers, whether just third party observing or anything. One of the negatives of policing in our history here in the United States, obviously, is the civil rights movement and the events that happened down south. It's, for us here, we don't know anything different. We grew up around each other. We went to high school together. Diversity, equality, inclusiveness for most of the people here is just second nature. It's a part of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Down south, that wasn't their way of life, and it cost people lives, end on end on end. And even here in New Jersey, we still have factions of the KKK and stuff that are prevalent, and it's horrible. Not that they're associated with law enforcement, but especially during the civil rights movement, and even still today, we have individuals primarily in the South, but they're all over, that have those bigoted views and the prejudiced nature about them. That's the biggest negative thing for any human in any occupation, any group, but for law enforcement, where we're supposed to set the example, we're supposed to set the bar. As a whole, that's one of the biggest negatives. Also is the individuals that fail to train, that get lazy. One of the biggest things in this career is training your rear off, doing stuff other than what's mandated. There's a lot of training that guys go to. So much training. It's incredible. Mental health, firearms, clearing buildings, active shooters, catching people that unfortunately want to take their life. Just everything that you can think of training-wise we go to. But you have to do more. So one of the biggest negatives I see is individuals that get lazy with their training, and then they make that fatal mistake. And they take lives that shouldn't be taken away. It's so easy just to sign up for a class and say, hey, supervisor, I'm going to train. Okay, this day. Take one day off, go train. Those are the two big negatives of where we've come from in that region of the country, how it's been seen in other parts of just being racially bigoted. That's the big thing, and it angers me because I know it's going to make my job harder, and I know there's innocent lives that are being taken away, that are being put away, that are being mistreated simply because of who they are and because the individual treating them has a badge on. Those are the two real big negatives for me, is that failure to train and the bias.
Going off that training point you brought up, so do you think there's been a lot of advocacy for more police training and police actually, I'm not sure, I didn't look into this, but I'm not sure if the police actually learn the law,
Yeah.
like the same way lawyers and other professions do. So, what's your opinion on like a longer period of required training for police officers?
So a lot of guys like myself, we go to school for criminal justice, which is basic criminal law.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna exclude that because you do not need to have a set degree to go into law enforcement. You have any degree, or just a high school diploma. It depends on the department, but we'll get into that later. As far as training and stuff, you have your 6-month academy. That's usually how long it is. You're there. Most places you live there from Monday to Friday, and you go home for the weekends. You have to report back on Monday. Everywhere is different though. But in the academy here in New Jersey, I'll use us as an example. We cover New Jersey Title 2C, which is criminal code, and then Title 39, which is traffic code. So those are the two primary areas of law that we will work in. We don't really work in like civil law and stuff like that because law-wise and legality issues really come from 2C and 39. So those are the big ones that we do. So they're educated 6 months on that, and then training kicks in. After they graduate the academy, they go with their FTO, their field training officer, for maybe I would say a couple months to learn the career. And then the training just keeps advancing from there. Always learning new case law. Case law is always changing. So knowing the most active case laws that the AG provides, the Attorney General, and just following up on everything. Training. But yes, we do know Title 2C like the back of our hand. A lot of guys will have the Title 2C handbooks and 39 handbooks in their cars just so they can review stuff when they need to, because we're all humans. We're going to forget certain things here or there. In the heat of the moment in situations, there's certain 2C laws, there's certain 39 laws that are going to stick out to you that you see more often. Depends on where you live,
Yeah.
Around here, guys are using an abundance of different laws every day. But maybe if you work somewhere on Route 66, whatever traffic code they have, you're only using like speeding, or lane violation, stuff like that. It depends on where you are. But for the most part, yeah, there's guys I would be confident in saying they could go to a pre-law program and succeed with flying colors. But one of the things with being a police officer is knowing your laws.
Yeah.
So one of the professors that I had was an ex-chief, and he said the best cops are the ones who know the laws the best. So and I think that is true. So that's why I chose my degree, criminal justice, full law-based. Hopefully, it's going to make me the foremost police officer that I wish to be.
Indeed. Thank you for that. So we are currently in a major movement that sparked from a police officer unfortunately killing the lives of innocent black men and women across the country. And there's been many things that have arose out of this movement, including calls to reform the police, to defund the police, and stuff like that, which we'll get into later. But what are your thoughts on the sentiment that has been going around social media that ACAB, all cops are bad?
I think it's a very closed-minded approach. A lot of individuals that, like myself, are for equality, or for pushing for all this stuff, for not to judge anyone based on their decisions or who they are, what they choose to do with their life, how they identify and all this stuff. Those individuals are also excluding a whole group of individuals in our country. We have a lot of police officers, men, women, gay, straight. We have trans police officers. We have cops all over this country that come from backgrounds of everywhere. New York City is a prime example of that. A lot of individuals, their first language in the NYPD is not English; it's their second language. But that doesn't mean that you're a good person. I just think it's a closed-minded approach, just like any other bigoted or racist comment out there. I think it falls into the same category, and it almost contradicts what everyone is pushing for. Because we have good cops out there. 99% of us are good people. We just want to help the world. We got into this to help the world. We sacrificed our lives for the betterment of everyone else, But I just it hurts me when people say that, because all my life I haven't drank, I haven't smoked, I've never gotten a ticket, I've never gotten arrested. I've always been respectful to everyone that I meet, to always just make myself as well off as possible. So when I go to that academy, I'm straight, I'm ready to go. Hopefully push to be the top of my class, everything like that. For just someone to say that I'm a bad person just because I want to do good in this world, it hurts. It hurts. And it hurts good cops too. The ones that maybe throw that to the side and, say, screw you, I don't, this and that, and maybe retaliate from that. Maybe those are individuals in our line of work that are part of the problem. You definitely want to address it, because that's a concern from our side, is we don't want you to have those feelings. What can we do to show you who we are, how good we are, how we want to help you, so in that sense, I understand where the frustration comes from. Absolutely. It's frustrating for me to, while I'm working, while my family works, while my friends and colleagues work so hard to create so much goodness in our area, in our community, we have individuals that just fail to train, do things the wrong way, or are just simply bigoted, and do things to just set the clock back and put us right back to where we all once were.
Do you think that the system needs reforming?
Everything does. I think every profession has their weak points that need improving. Law enforcement is something where, believe it or not, you can make mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen, but what our job is, and what our job should be, and the priority of cops should be, is to work hard, understand where you are, keep your feet, so when you make a mistake, it's a small one, like the name of a street, or the block you're on in a report, and you just have to revise the report, not someone's life. And that's a big difference. There are going to be instances where some cops that maybe shouldn't be cops but got through show. It happens. We're human, we make mistakes. 2018, Johns Hopkins reported 250,000 people died from medical malpractice. It's a lot of people. No one lifted a finger. Because they're doctors, we're all humans, we make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes cost lives. It's tragic, it's horrible, but I'm not going to expect a doctor to be perfect. I want someone to be perfect. You want cops to be perfect. You want construction workers to be perfect, but things happen all the time. Our goal is to address these situations, get the bad cops out, prosecute them, put them away, and get guys in here that we can really trust. Increase our hiring standards. That's one of the biggest things. Law enforcement and policing is not a profession. It's just a career. And the difference is, like, being a doctor is a profession. Everyone has to go to medical school. You got to get that MD. For policing, we come from all walks of life, which brings good things, which brings negative things. I would like to see us do what Germany does in their educational system, is starting from high school. Everyone is required to be in that vocational program, so you can come out of high school with something that is career-based. One of those is law enforcement, policing. Have that here. Have a set degree that everyone who wants to be a police officer gets. There's not enough spots for everyone that wants to be a police officer. Put that in perspective, here in New Jersey, like 20,000 to 25,000 people take the civil service test alone every 2 years when it comes out. The amount of people that get hired off of that, in the hundreds.
Wow.
Very few, right? I didn't even get hired off of the last one. I have family that's been in for 100 years. You try and get loyalty to people that have come from a line, but there's just so many people. And veterans, they always get stuff, preference. But from the reform side, I would really love to see us become a profession. Have the set college degree that is for law enforcement. And I would like to see, maybe to ensure someone has employment while they're searching for their career in law enforcement, have them require a minor or something like that. Marketing, business, physical therapy, whatever, to have that backbone.
Yeah.
Because if you have 1 million people every year that graduate with a degree in, say, criminal justice is that required degree. So you have everyone, like 1 million people. Not all those 1 million people are going to get hired. Some may never get hired. But I would like to see us become a profession.
Yeah.
I would like to see individuals become more accounted for. People that do. We have this thing called the blue wall of silence, and it's basically kind of a theoretical type of thing, where if someone's involved in an internal investigation, you don't say anything. For me, if something's very serious, say something, talk about it. Individuals that are not abiding by AG guidelines, that are not abiding by the Constitution of the United States, that are causing harm to society when you're supposed to be causing good, those individuals need to be outed.
Yeah.
I don't care who they are. If they're family, if they're friends, if they're your neighbor, if they were your FTO, it doesn't matter. Everyone needs to be accountable. Everyone needs to be responsible. We need to just get these individuals that are dragging us down out. This is going to be a never-ending battle. You're always going to get people like that.
Yeah.
But in doing the little things, just to make us a little bit more uniform, a little bit more reformed, will go a long way. I don't think we need to abolish our police departments. It would be a very, very bad thing to have a lawless society, but I certainly think that there is change that needs to be done, just like every other career. But our focus now is on law enforcement. We can focus on the other careers once we take care of our needs.
All right, so you mentioned earlier about accountability in the police force.
Yes.
And that's, at least from my perspective, that's not really something that's been prevalent as much, especially when you mentioned that. I thought of the Breonna Taylor case and how the officers that were involved in her murder, only one of them just got fired, and he actually petitioned to get his job back. So what are your views on that case and the overall idea of accountability within the police department?
The situation is, it's tragic. It's something that I've always kind of wondered with no-knock warrants and stuff. No knock, no say, this type of stuff. They're good in some situations. They're bad in others. This is an example of a bad no-knock search warrant. What I see from that case is you have cops that were told by someone else, by a higher up, that, hey, this is the house. You don't second guess. You don't say, like, are you sure, to your supervisors. Your supervisor's supposed to know. Sometimes intel's bad intel. It happens. I don't know the details, where they got that information from, who gave it to them, how long were they watching the house. I know they had observed something getting dropped off to the house. Was it narcotics? Was it something illegal? I don't know. So let's talk about maybe from one of the police officers' perspectives. I don't know how many individuals were there. Have they released the body cam footage, if any?
I don't think there was any footage at all.
Yeah, I didn't see anything. So let's say no knock warrant, they go in, individual in the home has a firearm, self-defense, your Second Amendment right. Individual starts shooting. He don't know who is in the house, and that's my biggest thing, not from the whether it's legal, whether it's right, just from a safety perspective. Why am I going to go into a house in a country that was founded on firearms unannounced?
Yeah.
Your vest is only going to protect you so much. If you have a helmet on, it's only going to protect you so much, if anything. Some helmets are not bulletproof. Depending on what firearm the individual had, your chest might not be saved either. So they go in, and individual starts shooting. He don't know who's in his house. I'm not going to say I can't say that it's wrong to defend your property, because, I believe in life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and property. I think property should be in there. So he's defending himself. He's defending his home and his loved one. The police start engaging with the individual, and unfortunately, Breonna Taylor passed away. The male, he survived. I'm assuming. I see that as a situation that never should have happened. I think it just takes a little bit more observation, a little bit more intel to figure out, hey, this woman's an EMT. Let's go find her at work. Find out what that guy does. That was always my biggest thing when I learned about no knock, no say. I was like, really, they do that? And people said, yeah, it doesn't happen a lot, but it happens. And this is, I think, a prime example of why we really shouldn't do that. If you're gonna hit a house, just hit it hard. Police search warrant, and just announce yourself. It's something that I always question, but the situation is incredibly tragic. On the side of accountability, the officers involved from a legal standpoint are, I would say, I know the one was fired. I don't know what their state laws are. I would say that from a legal standpoint, it's very tricky. I think the reason why the other two individuals haven't been fired is because there's something legal protecting them, standing in the way, because they were approved to give that search warrant. So if anything, from an accountability standpoint, I would focus on who gave that order, why they gave that order, what information they had, and then something to say, what are we going to do as a department, as a nation collectively, to not have another incident like this happen? Obviously, a lot of individuals want those cops fired. It's going to take a lot. Do I think they deserve to be fired? I don't know. I can't make that call. It's a horrible situation. They have to live with it forever, knowing that they went in, they took the life of a first responder just like them. And I know personally I would be sick. I would probably have to step away from something like that, on my own. So that's what I'm gonna say from a legal standpoint. Accountability wise, even if they wanted to fire them, I don't know if they could. I think it would be a lot of court, a lot of lawsuits,
red tape.
Exactly, a lot of red tape. And it's at the end of the day, it's two accidents. It's an accident of not figuring out, not just saying, hey, we're here, police, ding dong, and then it's an accident on the homeowner for not seeing. But in this situation, I fully understand where the individual is coming from. Self-defense. You don't know who's in your house, and I think a lot of individuals would have done the same. If they have a firearm, you have a firearm for protection. So the situation's bad. And I feel for everyone in the situation, but it's tough. It's very tough. And I know people are frustrated, and I am too, because it's just another incident of, hey, why can we just have done this? I'm not an expert. I'm not a cop yet, but I know a lot. I don't know everything, but that's just my take on it. It's a horrible, horrible situation overall. And from that accountability standpoint, that it's when the law comes in, whereas who you can make accountable. They had the primary, I guess, officer fired, the one who claimed, they claim fired the round that killed Breonna Taylor, but I don't know. It's tough. It's very tough.
It really is. So, to reiterate, the police force is a very hierarchical, if that's a word, profession. It's all about superiors and following orders and stuff like that. So, you think that if anyone is to be held accountable, is the person that gave the order to go in the house? Because keep in mind, the suspect was already arrested too. I don't know if you heard that. The suspect they were looking for was arrested. So, do you think that the supervisor or the captain or whoever that executed the order is the one that should be held accountable?
I think a statement should definitely be issued. I would put all cards on the table, really go over with the public, with Breonna Taylor's family, and say, hey, this is what happened. This is, what was going on. It would be my assumption, again, I'm not an expert, it'd be my assumption that a no-knock warrants may be popular in that area. Maybe that's something they do. And maybe this is just the first situation that they've come by where the individual is armed in the home, and willing to engage with someone entering their home. So yeah, I would like to see. I don't know if the department has held a press conference. I'm sure they have.
Yeah, probably.
But I would certainly like to see hear the thoughts and of the higher ups in the department as you take on those roles to make those decisions, and when stuff hits the fan, you also have to speak on behalf of your little people, as I call it. The people that follow you, because you're in charge. That's what you do. So you gotta speak up. You gotta bite the towel and step in front of the camera and say, hey, we did this, we did that. The intel was from here, and this is why X, Y, and Z happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely, I think that would be a good move. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure the department has held some sort of PR stuff, but yeah, I would definitely, whoever gave that order should definitely speak up and say, hey, this is why this happened.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a tough situation,
And then you have to take into account that individual that speaks up and says, hey, I'm the supervisor that gave this order. Now you got to protect them. Now you got to watch them. You got to have a cop in front of their house. You got to make sure they get into work safely. There's a target on their head. Because we have extremists on both sides of the spectrum in this country that will do horrible things. But again, like, accidents happen. We're all human. The intel, they could have been getting the intel from someone who's, maybe an informant on the street that gave them good intel up until this point. That's why I don't know the details. So it's hard for any of us in this career to comment on stuff, especially me, just being an intern and just speaking from experience of my family, to like comment on stuff like this, because it's so deep. It's so like there's so much stuff that goes on that it's so hard to talk about it and really say, like, pinpoint where we should go. Unless you're there, it's so hard to comment on it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So what are your thoughts on people who say that this is similar to the all cops are bad ideology? People who say that the badge, like, once someone gets a badge, it kind of makes them power hungry, and they feel like they can do whatever and like get away with anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's been guys that have, you hear like they're on power trips and stuff. If you're in this for the right reasons, you're in this for the long haul, you're here because you want to make a difference, you're not going to get on that power trip. The badge, the gun, the cuffs, the car, the lights, everything is nothing to you unless you're making a positive difference in someone else's life. You're taking one bad guy who's a real bad guy off the street and getting a conviction. That is a goal of a good arrest. It is not how many arrests you make, but what arrests lead to convictions, which means gathering all the good evidence, everything like that. If you're on a power trip, you see a lot of guys just making traffic stop after traffic stop for minor violation. And while it's legal to give someone a ticket for not using their turn signal, that we have something called discretion, and you use your discretion to say, hey, I'm going to give you a warning. That builds something between the police and that individual. But if you do that, if you give people warnings for those little things, and then obviously issue them summonses or arrest them for the major things, it shows that your level-headed. You think like them. You're human too. You're not a robot. That's what we don't want to be. We don't want to be robots. So to be on like a power trip or something, I see it very negative. Just like maybe teachers that are on power trips. It's like, hey, sit down, do this, assign seats, all this stuff. You hated it in school when your teacher would, be all, all happy and giddy and be like, hey, you're gonna do this and you're gonna do that. Adults don't like it when police officers are on power trips and all high and mighty, because we're humans too. It's we have the badge to identify ourselves, and that's all it is to identify ourselves and say, hey, we're here to help you. So that's where everyone should be at. If you're in this career, you should be in it for the right reasons. There's no other reason why you should be here.
How do you feel about, like, what do you think should be done about those who aren't, though?
It all starts with supervisors identifying the individual, either through, someone submits, citizen submits an IA, says, hey, this cop did X, Y, and Z to me, investigate it. It comes down to cops holding each other accountable, saying, hey, Officer X is doing this, speaking up. It's tough, because like I said, there's that blue wall of silence. There's some things that you don't say. If someone's having problems at home and they take, 10 minutes more on their lunch, which we don't really have lunches, but if they're, if they're hanging out in the parking lot for 5 minutes and they're just cooling down because they're having a bad day, don't say that. Don't report it. We're people. Yeah. You're not gonna, because you don't know what they're going on at home. They say, hey, I'm having a bad day. They're really having a bad day. Yeah. But if someone says, hey, stay off the air tonight, what do? And that happens. That happens a lot, more so than you think. Not meaning that you're not gonna respond to calls, but there's people around that will say, hey, take it easy tonight. And how do you address that? In the 21st century, moving forward, we're in the third decade now, how do we address those situations of laziness, of power tripping, of people tarnishing the badge? Because the good cops, we're tired of it. We're tired of cleaning up for other people's messes. And I'm not even in it yet. But I see it. My family feels it. So it does affect me. My grandfather has been retired for almost 20 years now. He feels it. His best friend, who is also a established police officer, who's the director of 2 departments, he feels it. So it's getting those guys that really just aren't here for the right reasons. Just find a new career, or hit the desk or something, Check yourself.
Yeah, that's very important. Because I feel like if those people continue to remain in the system, it continues to tarnish it and continue to ruin the public trust.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about, the tools that police officers are given to operate. For example, some people think that in many cases that police officers are too quick to reach for their guns when they have a taser or other means of subduing a potentially violent or non-violent even individual. So what are your thoughts on that?
So this is something that I'm kind of like a nerd about this, about like gear and everything, gear and police cars, because I grew up around this stuff, and I love this career and the goodness that we can produce. So gear was always my thing. So most guys around here, you have your duty belt. Some people will have OC spray. You'll have your cuffs. You'll have extra mags. Your handcuffs, your nightstick, which is now more commonly a collapsible baton, which is not fun to get hit with. And then you have your firearm, your sidearm, which is a handgun. It's either going to be probably a 9mm, 40 cal, or 45 in some cases. There might be some departments might carry different, but I think usually 9 is the preferred. So in your car you could have you have 2 long guns, sometimes maybe 1. It all depends. Like there's no set standard on what you have. But you might have a shotgun, and you might have a rifle, long gun. And as talking about like subduing suspects and like reaching for guns, a lot of guys that I know, when you approach a vehicle or anywhere, this stuff is heavy. A lot of guys just rest their hand on their hip. It's just called being at the ready. So when you approach a vehicle and you see an officer that has their hand, sometimes their hand will be on the handle. Their finger will not be on the trigger, or trigger fingers are always parallel to the barrel of the firearm. Like I said, I'm not a cop. I haven't gone through all this training. This is from just what I observed. So it's just always being at the ready, because we do have situations where we approach a vehicle and someone starts shooting at officers. That's just being at the ready. When engaging in a hand-to-hand combat, one of the things that I was always taught is you meet a level of force that a suspect is giving you with a degree higher, the next thing higher, because we don't sword fight, we don't joust. This is in medieval times, and if you're a threat, our goal is to eliminate the threat, not kill the threat, eliminate the threat. So if an individual comes at someone with hands, just like, hey, I want to tickle you, I want to do whatever, they're going to pull out their baton, their nightstick. They click it out, they whip it down, and usually those clicks will stop a lot of people. They're loud. So they'll click that and you say, hey, maybe I don't want to get hit with that. If they do, we strike in the shoulders area and the legs. Not really, try not to hit the chest or the vital organs or the head, neck area. And then some people will use their OC spray, which works sometimes, doesn't work other times. We'll also have a taser. Tasers are less lethal tools. They're not non-lethal, because you can be killed by that electrical stun in some cases. I think if you have like a pacemaker, it might do it, or if you just maybe have a heart condition. I'm not too sure. We have restraints, so if people are spitting, we'll have like a spit, like a mesh thing that goes over their head. So especially during these times, you don't want to get spit on. There's a lot of things. There's shackles that you can put on. The departments have different things. Beanbag guns, that's been a big thing. Beanbag tools, sorry. There's a lot of things. Tear gas, riot gear. We have a lot of stuff for different situations. When you see this stuff in like people getting hit by beanbags, they hurt. They are not meant to be light. They are meant to deter. As to when you use them, you're supposed to use them per your AG guidelines. So here in New Jersey, our Bible is the AG guidelines. Whenever the AG guideline says this situation, you use this amount of force, your use of force guidelines, that's what you should go by. I don't know about everywhere else. I'm not a expert, but that is the base of the tools that we have. So if someone came at me with a knife, you would use your firearm, because you meet that with the next higher level. Recently, we've seen Dallas say that if someone engages you with a knife, don't use your firearm, which poses a question. In order to react quickly and effectively, you need to be 20 feet away from someone. That's pretty far. Most cases, we're not that far away from people. So someone comes out of the officer with a knife, God forbid, stabs them, gets through their vest, incapacitates them. What can they easily do? Take their firearm. That's why we go to the next level, because we can't lose that battle. We can't afford to lose that battle, because we have long guns in our cars. Our keys are on our person. Most times our cars are running. So that's when that use of force comes in. In these big riot situations, I have no clue about that. I don't know the first thing when it comes to riots, but like the general, like suspect is resisting type stuff, you're meeting with a next higher level in order to make it easier to subdue a suspect. That's basically what it is.
I see.
It gets complicated, and like I said, I'm not an expert, but that's like the base of what we do.
So would you say that the individual officer uses their own judgment as to what tool they should use in a particular situation?
Yeah, so like I said, it's per AG guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So the Attorney General's guidelines as to what use of force to use. If you train hard, if you read your books, you keep up on all your information, you'll know what tool to use in the correct situation. So, if you're going hand-to-hand combat, are you going to spray them? Are you going to use your baton? What are you going to do? Are you by yourself? Do you have someone else with you? Do you have two people with you? You can communicate with your team members. If you have someone who's kind of like cracked out and on something, you might have to approach that differently.
Yeah.
A lot of individuals that are on drugs have very high adrenaline. You tase them, they don't feel a thing. They don't do nothing, man. Some individuals that are intoxicated with alcohol, you might hit them with a baton, they don't feel nothing. So a lot of times it doesn't work, and you just got to go to, wrestle them down to the ground, and just kind of get down and dirty, and that's the big fights. Those are the things that really show, like, hey, this guy is good. He got into a fight yesterday, he won, he got someone to sober up.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are so when it comes to the tools, it's basically your discretion to a point. Someone comes at you with their hands, you can't just pull out your gun.
Yeah.
But you have the choice of baton or spray, something like that.
I feel like that's important to know, because like too often people, like, at least in cases I've seen, they're too quick to pull out the gun, the most fatal option. And I think that's a big problem, especially in a lot of these cases we've been seeing.
Yeah.
If let's say someone does end up in a situation like that, right? You said they go by the AG guidelines.
Yeah.
What if they use the gun in a situation where it probably shouldn't have been used?
So if you were to use, say, like a firearm when someone's trying to just fight you, hand-to-hand combat, then you'd be penalized. You have you have your union protections and stuff, and you can you claim that you fear your life and stuff like that. But there will be repercussions if you do not follow, especially in New Jersey. If you do not follow those AG guidelines, there will be repercussions. Every situation is different. There's no cookie cutter type of traffic stop or encounter with someone. It is all a blank slate when you go somewhere. So the way you approach each and every situation is very crucial. It's different, it's very unique.
Yeah.
So when you use, when you choose your use of force, I think if guys go by the AG guidelines, from what I have been educated on and what other cops have told me, the AG guidelines will save your behind. If you just follow them, you'll be good in any situation. If you meet that level of force by a suspect with your level of force per AG guidelines, you'll be good.
Okay.
That's here in New Jersey. Everywhere else, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've been educated by some pretty good cops here in New Jersey. So on that, if any cop listens to this and they hear me say AG guidelines, they're gonna smile ear to ear and be like, "Yes, Colin, yes, you know what to do."
That's great.
Yeah.
So what are the kinds of like repercussions that a cop may face? Because you mentioned that earlier. Like, do they get suspended? Do they have to take a class or something? So
like I said, I'm not like that on that stuff, like the IA stuff and things that go really deep into the profession. I don't know. I'm not there. But I do know, like, guys, they can get suspended, they can get fired. There's suspension with pay, without pay. I think it's all. I don't know if that's in AG guidelines as well. I don't know if it's in state, laws or anything, if it's per department. But if guys or gals do stuff that that violates something, departmental policy, your AG guidelines, stuff like that, they will face repercussions. That's why we have our internal affairs. So our internal affairs are policing our police. They are a select group of officers, sometimes in a actual bureau. So like places like most sheriff's offices, because they're large departments. New York, all the cities, state, they will have their own bureau, full-time IA. Whenever something happens, those officers go to work and they investigate their own people who they work with every day. They might even be partners with that person at one point. They will investigate them, and then they determine if if there's enough evidence, if they truly did violate something. So that's why when like a citizen issues a complaint, it goes to the IA desk. Other departments, maybe it's just a captain or a lieutenant that does the investigations. So it's all different, but yeah, if a cop violates the law or does something wrong, certainly there will be repercussions, because that's how we keep everyone in check.
Yes, yes.
We are not above the law in any way. If something is done wrong or incorrectly legally, yeah, you will be punished for it just like anyone else.
Yeah, I think that's important to hear, because not a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
They feel like cops get away with a lot and are not faced with repercussions, which is not the case.
Yeah.
So I think that's very, very important to hear. Now, what are your opinions on the recent calls to defund the police and reallocate those funds to like the poor communities and stuff like that?
One of the police departments have big budgets, huge budgets. Some more than others. It's just like fire departments. Fire departments have really big budgets. They come in waves when they get fired, like engines and stuff. It all gets spent, all of it. Like it's to the point where sometimes you got to request money for stuff, uniforms, vehicles, because vehicles have to get outfitted, so they cost a lot of money, like 60, 70 grand for some cars. They're really expensive. Ammunition, training stuff, a lot of it goes to training, but you need stuff for traffic, you need signs, you need cones, you need papers for stuff, you need to hire your IT guys. There's a lot of money that goes to our police departments. And should we take money from our police departments and give it to other programs? Absolutely, if it's needed. I don't think we need to strip our police departments of funds, because I don't think it's everywhere, these situations are happening. But I certainly think that funds can be rearranged within jurisdictions of all bureaus, from parks to fire to medics to police, just kind of like making them use their money more wisely.
Yeah.
And if they have room for individuals that need it, that you can start creating programs and doing things, absolutely, I'm all for it. But we can't get anything done without making sure our communities are safe. So we need to, if we're gonna have a homeless shelter, we need to make sure individuals can stand outside in a line, and right now 6 feet apart, without worrying about someone coming up and robbing those individuals of whatever they have, or infiltrating the homeless shelter and taking food for free. I think once, maybe have a checklist or something. I don't know who runs the finances and stuff, but if that's something that can be done, sure, do it. If we can help more people, I'm for that. But yeah, just making sure all bases are covered before you move forward. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like you said, it's not uniform. So like situations, like some police departments are funded more than others.
Yeah.
Depending on where the area is. So I really think it depends on the area, but I definitely do think it'll be beneficial for especially some more of the poor communities, especially those that are like might be over policed and stuff like that. I want to move on to conditions within the police, like racial conditions within the police department.
Yeah.
I read something that said, it was from a police officer in Philly, a black police officer, and he said something along the lines of, the black hate me because I'm blue, and the blue hate me because I'm black.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he felt. And I'm sure, like I'm not sure the capacity to which individuals of color are mistreated within the police department itself. But how do you think situations like that should be addressed in the police departments?
I think for a cop to be racist about another cop is something that really sickens me. And, we're all in this together. There's one race, the human race, and that's it. And we're all fighting a good fight. Most Americans are. I believe there's more good than bad out there. And for someone to judge anyone, on the bias of what they look like, where they came from, is wrong. And it's something that this country has been just plagued with for so long.
Yeah.
For our entire history. Far longer than any of us have been around. I think inside of a department, it certainly needs to be addressed first and foremost, because how can you go out and protect protesters? How can you go march alongside of individuals pushing for change when you yourself don't believe in those values? I sat in on a conference at Mercer County Community College, where I went to school for the last 2 years. It was called Black and Blue, and it was a panel of black police officers that are some active, some retired, men and women both, that shared their experiences, and it was really enlightening. It was a whole side of policing that I never knew. One of my friends in high school, his father was a police officer. He was black, and he ended up actually winning a case against his department for them having racial biases and having injustices within the department.
Wow.
And following that case, the department just collapsed. There was a lot of things that went wrong in his department, but I'm sure that what he exploited helped to exploit other things, to the point where the prosecutor's office had to take over their department.
Wow.
And they're still in charge of the department today.
Wow.
If you can exploit that and get good people where they need to be, I'm all for that. The good cops out here, like I said, we're tired of this stuff happening. We just want to go to work every day and not have it be work. We want to go, get up, go help somebody. Just go save a life today. Go get someone to stop speeding today. Go resolve a domestic violence. Stuff like that. That's what we want to do. We don't want to, be mediating someone's, injustices and being, prejudiced and saying, oh, why you gotta think this way? Why you gotta be like that? I have no patience for it. I'm not gonna, but here's the thing. You gotta work with them.
Yeah.
That might be your partner. And for me, if I have someone who's inherently racist as my partner, it's gonna be very difficult for me to work. And at the end of the day, you gotta choose. Who do you want in your department? You want someone who's biased and prejudiced, or you want someone who's for everybody and can relate to everybody? That's just me. So if that's happening, in especially Philly PD, one of our oldest, most historic departments, that's something that's very concerning and should definitely be addressed, by people inside the department.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's important too, because if people with that mindset are within the police department, think about how they treat people.
Yeah.
The average citizens.
If you don't treat your own correctly, how are you going to treat the public correctly?
Exactly.
Philly has a very high percentage of African Americans. One of the reasons why Philly is what it is. It's such a great city for that reason of just the diversity that Philly has. But if you're gonna go out there and how are you gonna do your job? That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, do we see it around here? Not as much. We see it around here, most definitely. But the department I'm with has really set a good example for me in what they do. We have a very diverse crew over there. We have white guys, we have Hispanic, Latino, we have Indian, we have African American, we have men, women. They really set a good example for what we do. We're accredited by both. There's a accreditation for United States, and there's accreditation for the state, which basically means you follow your everything's up to date, and you have it's the most standardization kind of that we have, and that's what my department is. I'm not going to put them on record because I didn't ask them if I could, but if I'm going to send this over to one of my supervisors, and I'm sure he's going to be happy that we're doing this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if someone in the department is like that, I would definitely address that.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you were an intern for a department. So what are some of the experiences you've had that you really value and that have have added to your desire to become a police officer?
So at the department we worked for, did a National Night Out, which is a day where the community comes together with law enforcement. It's celebrated nationwide. Like I said, with budgets, you need the budget for it. You get vendors, you get sponsors, you get free food, everything, parking. And I had the privilege to just work traffic, pedestrian and traffic control. And I set up for the event. But we had, I think, like 3,000 people. I parked over 2,000 cars, like the guys that were working parking. So,
wow.
You have 2,000 cars and you have carloads of people, you're going to have close to 4,000 people. That night it was incredible to see how many people came out in support of the police department, to get to know the police and just connect. We're all human, and that was a really heartwarming experience, and it was one of my first. It was my first year interning with the department, and just to see the connection, the genuine connection that people had with police officers that night was just incredible. And now that there's 4,000 odd people that are with you, that understand you, that are going to support you if something happens, where you need, say, if you need money, if you want to start a program, it's a police funded program, or if you want to start an athletic league, you have 4,000 people that are going to vouch for you and say, hey, I trust these guys are good people. There's things all over. NYPD is always out. They have police officers that are specifically tasked to homelessness. They only deal with homeless people, finding them resources, places to go. Officers get assigned individuals once they find them, stuff like that, to help them become better people. Also, I worked with a sheriff's office here in New Jersey, and we did a junior police academy when I was interning with them. And just to see all these kids come together and just, run around just like we're regular people, because we are regular people. A lot of times if you have adults that have a negative, interactions with police or are raised anti-police, I notice you'll see these tendencies where the first thing they'll look at is their gun. They won't look you in the eye, they'll look at your gun. They'll look at your badge. They won't stare you in the eye. But these kids, man, they just came. And they came from all different towns here in the county, and they just had a ball. It was great. The parents came to graduation. We got them to march, and we gave them all little teddy bears and diplomas and stuff. And that is just the stuff. That is just the peak of what we do. There's so much below the surface that nobody knows about. Those things are just... it's what makes you want to keep doing what you're doing in this career. And it's what I want to get into, Also, some of my good friends are canine handlers. And just having the dog, you can't pet the dog because for insurance purposes, they're very impulsive, so they might bite you. Depends on what type of dog it is. But I have a lot of friends who are canine handlers. And if you just bring the dog to events, the smiles on people's faces when they just walk by, because we have Belgian Malinois and German Shepherds, and they're beautiful dogs, so people go crazy for them. It's just the little things go a really long way. The stuff you at least the stuff that I live for, the stuff that I work hard for, is not shootouts with bank robbers and chases with chasing supercars and stuff. It's just impacting lives positively. That is what really gets me going, is seeing other people happy, smiling. While I'll sweat all day and set up for the event. If everyone that walks into an event or sees me or interacts with me when I get on this job is happier than when they were before they interacted with me, that makes my day.
Wow, that's really nice to hear, and I feel like a lot of that could be something that benefits a lot of communities. And going off that, how do you think communities, especially communities of color, and the police can reestablish a relationship of trust? How do you think that could be done?
One of the big things that I think helps is communication. I think peace and love and goodness will always prevail. So if you have this kind, genuine communication, have maybe like a community board of individuals of color that meet with the police, or ethnic groups that meet with the police, or have a volunteer group of anyone meet the police. I think it's something that should be done all over. It takes maybe an hour out of your week to just have people come after work one day and just talk of how cops can do this for this group of people, what this group of people needs to do for the police. Maybe set up block parties and stuff to bring cops together. I know in Camden, instead of Camden used to be a murder capital of the world, and people say like, "Oh, stop using Camden as a excuse and stuff." But they've come a long way. They heavily policed it for a long time. Obviously, there's an active police presence in Camden, but what the police department did while they were marching is they marched, and then after that they had a cookout, and everybody came together, and the cops were flipping burgers and playing with the kids and stuff, and like that's the stuff that's really nice. Like, one time my brother was playing basketball here in town, and it was when he was going through a little bit of a rough patch, and the cop pulled up, and my mom, her heart dropped. She's like, "Colin, the cops are here." Cop gets out, starts playing basketball with my brother.
Wow.
It's those moments and those things that really bring the communities together. The riots don't solve a lot. They send a message. Protests send one message, riots send another message. You send a message, but there's no communication. The communication is fire and broken glass. But how productive can that be? It's only one way. The communication only goes one way. So I think these protests, especially around here, like the marches and stuff, it really helps. It really shows the community leaders, not just police, because you got to think, most chiefs, their bosses are their mayors. The chiefs are not the highest in their jurisdiction. They are in their agency, but just having that communication with community leaders and the police departments, and just bringing people together in genuine, calm, professional communication, I think that's what's going to solve all of this. People can riot for days, but we're tearing down our historical cities. The Confederate stuff, I don't care. You can tear down the Confederate stuff, but they tear down like some Union stuff. Stuff for the Union, the statues, like that. That's what brings the country together. The Union, the Union Army kind of like pushed everyone away, won the war. So I think some individuals need to know what they're fighting for when they come and before they come into the police, and talk. You have individuals that are really fighting a good fight, but are being shunned. The media doesn't have their spotlight on them. Guys like you, the media should be all over you. The media should be all over what you guys are doing, but they're not. They're all over the riots in New York. People, just throwing bottles at businesses. I think communication will really just solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we were talking about this before. There has to be, there has to be like a conversation.
Yeah.
People have to be willing to come to the table and talk. I feel like we, like, there has to be a conversation where like we hear the side of the police officers, and then they hear the side of us, and we're able to work something out. We're able to talk about these different ideas of like reforms and stuff that we suggest that could help these situations, and they could put an input about how like something simple. Because I remember in elementary school there would be a police officer that came, and she was a female, and she would be like, oh, when you're getting pulled over, do this, you like don't like act this way, stuff like that. I think more of that would help.
Yeah, definitely. Education. It's like, a lot of people commentate on police and stuff, but in order to commentate, you got to know what you're talking about. Like, I won't commentate on a tennis match. I don't know anything about tennis, but I'll commentate on a lacrosse match because I know about lacrosse. But and like through our talk, like there's some things that I don't say because I don't know, because I'm not a cop. I'm an intern. I'm just come from a family. But I think like just knowing how to interact with law enforcement is a big thing. And you could put this in your podcast for it, and it's what I do because I get pulled over. I have tin on my car, so I get pulled over. And turn your car off, put your keys on your dash, turn your interior lights on, lower all your windows, put your hands on top of your steering wheel, and then you say your license, registration. Okay, it's in my glove box. Okay, I'm gonna reach for your glove box. A lot of things, moving forward, and this is a topic for another day. Our judicial system is skewed. It shows it's skewed, which is wrong, but it's skewed. So I like to say to people, when you get arrested, just relax. Even if you're innocent, just go with it. Because if you're really innocent, you'll hopefully get out. And that's, like I said, a topic for another day.
Yeah.
But just be kind and respectful. Don't, if you want to record, sure, it's your right. If a cop doesn't like it, why don't you like it? Just you have a body cam on yourself. You're always recording. A lot of guys I speak to, they don't really care. But just like never judge a situation off of that 60-second clip. Wait for that body cam footage to come out, or wait for the investigation to end. It will show some things. It will show a perspective of a citizen watching an incident. But wait for that body cam footage to come out and stuff, and just just always have respect. And respect goes a long way. And if you're, for the most part, if you're not doing anything wrong 99% of the time, you'll be all right. And I hope no one ever has to encounter someone that is in this career for the wrong reasons. And I'm confident that most people won't.
Yeah.
I'm confident that most Americans will encounter the goodness, which is most of us.
So just to wrap things up, where do you see the future of policing in this country going? And
I see a lot more better. It's grammatically incorrect, but I see a lot of better things coming. They say practice makes perfect. I say practice makes better. Just guys are just the good guys are gonna keep doing what they've been doing for years. Training, working hard, being good people to their communities, to the departments. Like I said, fighting the good fight, doing what they can to make their jurisdictions safer, more positive. And then supervisors and the guys that are, new guys coming in, they're, we're all into for a fight, and we always have to keep our eyes peeled. The future, I don't think police departments are going anywhere.
Yeah.
I really, I know like they said like Minneapolis got disbanded or something. I don't think the move is to disband police departments. We need cops. It's just, I would love to see, and I think this will happen. I think communities are going to come together. I think we're going to have a lot more unison. I think we're gonna get the bad guys out a lot quicker, a lot easier. And I'm excited to begin my career and see what kind of change I can implement, but also see what things I can keep. Obviously I'm not gonna make change immediately. It's gonna take a long time.
Yeah, it takes time.
But I think that there's a lot of goodness to come. This is a very rough patch, but I think we're moving through it. This year, 2020, it has been the year. It has been the year. And I think back to Kobe. I think if Kobe hadn't died, I think that's just it set it off, man. But I think that I think we'll be all right. But this is stuff that needs to happen.
Yeah.
The departments like the one I worked for, the departments that are supporting their communities, that are really doing the most, those are the ones that are really going to set the example and set the bar higher than what it already has been. But I would love to see some standardization as of when it comes to making this a profession. Getting, other than the academy, having this set standard of trainings and everything that is more unified. That's what I would love to see in the future. But
Yeah.
I think we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, I'm optimistic too. I feel like I'm hopeful that when we have children, that they're able to live in a world where there's more trust between the police departments and the community, and there's of course less cases where people might be killed by police officers,
Yeah.
and less cases of police brutality and stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely think everything that's going on is a step forward. The conversations we've been having, and the conversations they have to continue. I feel like that's
Yeah,
what's going to
definitely.
help to progress everything. So thank you so much, Mr. Colin White, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. This was great. I really appreciate this. I hope people listen to this and,
Yeah.
and really take some value from it.
Yeah.
I don't know everything. I don't have the answers for everything, but I hope this was at least informative enough to people that maybe don't know anything about police. But maybe you have some background now as to talk to other people about, like, hey, this is where they come from. Here's why some things may happen, but here's why some things shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So I hope I was able to provide some value to your podcast, and hopefully we could talk about some other thing some other time.
For sure. I really appreciate you having you on, and thank you everyone for listening today. So thank you everyone for listening to Genuine Radio. Peace out.